Some movies are great, some movies are awful, and some movies, and most of them really, end up falling somewhere in between. But sometimes you just know that an upcoming film is going to skew towards one extreme or the other, either a masterpiece or a dud, with no chance of it being merely okay or mid. I'm your designated Zillennial host Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here are 10 upcoming movies that will either be awesome or terrible. Number 10. Gladiator II. Now, a lot of eyebrows were understandably raised when a sequel to Gladiator was first announced. After all, the Best Picture-winning 2000 original didn't exactly leave much runway for a follow-up, and coming almost an entire quarter-century after the fact, it was easy to immediately scoff at Gladiator II as yet another IP-driven cash-in in the age of legacy sequels. But it wasn't quite so easy to dismiss the involvement of returning director Ridley Scott, nor the stupendously stacked cast including Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, a returning Connie Nielsen, and many, many more. And while I was initially skeptical, the trailer has me totally on board. Like, they're doing Namachia. Denzel Washington is one of our greatest living actors. I have faith that this is going to reach the last dual levels of greatness, rather than something that's been less memorable from Scott's recent output, like the decidedly okay Napoleon or the comical House of Gucci. But despite my own faith in the project and Ridley Scott to bring the heat, given that he's a filmmaker whose quality has fluctuated over the many decades he's been working, this one could go either way. It could be an Oscar-winning mega hit worthy of the original film, or an absolute clanker that evaporates from the collective consciousness within a few months of its release. Keep the faith though, I believe it's gonna be good. Number 9. Here. Before we even discuss what Tom Hanks' new film, Here, actually is, you can basically flip a coin to determine whether a new Robert Zemeckis film is actually any good or not. Though, to be honest, he's certainly tended more towards ambitious duds in recent times. Either way, in the very least, his latest effort is drawing from sensational source material, Richard Maguire's acclaimed 2014 graphic novel of the same name, and we'll see the director reunite with screenwriter Eric Roth for the first time since Forrest Gump. Throw in stars like Hanks and Robin Wright, and you've certainly got some incredible ingredients. But the real make or break for Here will surely be its bold stylistic conceit. The entire film takes place from a single camera perspective, chronicling how that single piece of space has changed over thousands of years, while focusing on a couple played by Hanks and Wright. Without the ability to substantially move the camera though, keeping such a film visually interesting represents one hell of a challenge. And beyond that, there's the already polarizing choice to have younger versions of Hanks and Wright's characters be digitally de-aged through generative AI tech, which, at least from the trailers, looks a bit crap. As such, it wouldn't be surprising if Here either turned out to be an Oscar-nominated triumph for Zemeckis or a calamitous misfire. Number 8. Alien Romulus. Where a new Alien movie is concerned, predicting whether it's going to be any good is like blindly throwing a dart at a dartboard and seeing what happens. Now, broadly speaking, there's a lot of hope for Alien Romulus, an interquel set between the original two movies, which focuses on an entirely new group of young space colonists who inevitably come face to face with a big bad xenomorph. Ridley Scott is only back as a producer this time, while the directing reins will be taken up by the talented Fede Alvarez, the man behind Evil Dead 2013 and Don't Breathe, with a cast including Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, and Isabella Mersad. The trailers have certainly sold the film's visual splendor and gut-wrenching intensity, but ultimately it'll come down to what we're not seeing yet. Namely, does the story do anything interesting? Are the characters memorable? And will it resist the temptation to tinker with the lore of the first two Alien films? In addition to all of that, there are some wild rumors doing the rounds online which, if true, almost guaranteeing that Romulus will split the fanbase down the middle. But as ever, we'll just have to wait and see. Number 7. Flight Risk. Flight Risk is a new Mel Gibson directed action thriller starring Marky Mark Wahlberg as a bald-headed hitman who attempts to assassinate one of his plane's passengers, an FBI informant played by Topher Grace, while an FBI agent played by Michelle Dockery is also on board and tries to stop him. Man, and look at Marky Mark here. Finally back to rascally endeavors, or funky endeavors, whichever is more fitting here. Now, Flight Risk is certainly a neat concept for a tightly wound, possibly single-location thriller, and it's worth noting that Jared Rosenberg's screenplay was featured in 2020's prestigious Hollywood blacklist of that year's best unproduced screenplays. Plus, Gibson, for all his many personal faults, is an extremely capable action director. But make no mistake, the trailer definitely has a junky vibe to it, especially with Wahlberg's hilariously unconvincing bald cap and the movie's gut-bustingly silly tagline, which I will say for you out loud with my mouth right now. Y'all need a pilot? It's the, what are we, some kind of Suicide Squad of 2024, I guess? So with all of that in mind, there's every possibility that Flight Risk is a total car crash from start to finish, or a failed throwback to 90s action thrillers that falls way short of the mark. The Marky Mark. That, or it's gonna be one of the most giddily entertaining genre films of the entire year. Number 6. Karate Kid. Next year's Karate Kid is clearly gearing up to basically be Avengers Endgame for fans of the martial arts franchise, bringing the world of the original movies together with that of 2010's Jackie Chan starring remake, in which they were taught kung fu, so don't know why it was called the Karate Kid, but I digress. Uniting the original recipe and remake worlds under one roof certainly has potential, especially with director Jonathan Entwistle of I Am Not Okay With This fame leading the charge, though it could equally end up being a cloying car crash of an unearned fan service that I feel like most of us are all desperately sick of in 2024. One slightly concerning sliver of information is that the showrunners of Karate Kid spin-off Cobra Kai have no involvement whatsoever with the movie, and have stated in interviews that the new film is more or less its own thing, portioned away from their series. As such, fans probably shouldn't expect Karate Kid 2025 to feel like a totally cohesive follow-up to Cobra Kai, and on top of that, there's the elephant in the room that Jaden Smith, who starred in the 2010 remake, apparently won't be returning either, which is a bit weird. The kid of the title this time will instead be newcomer Ben Wang, an on-the-rise actor who's certainly got some big shoes to fill. Here's to hoping that this feels like a meaningful entry into the series, and not merely a soulless attempt to wring the rejuvenated IP dry. Number 5. Minecraft. An adaptation of hit video game Minecraft was first announced over a decade ago, with the likes of Sean Levy and Rob McElhenney both being hired to direct at various stages, though scheduling issues and a struggle to crack the script led development to stall for many years. But the Minecraft film was finally shot earlier this year, with Jack, now call me untenacious D Black, playing the lead human role of Steve. The rest of the cast includes Jason Momoa, Jennifer Coolidge, Kate McKinnon, and Jermaine Clements, among others. Now, this absolutely feels like a film that's going to either be a highly creative surprise like the Lego Movie, or a cynical brand extension exercise like the Emoji Movie. There's no in-betweens here. Like, you can just picture the pop music needle drops already. Build me up, Buttercup. Wrecking Ball? I don't know. You let me know down in the comments below what's the worst choice they could come up with song-wise for the trailer or the actual film itself. But back to the movie, and though some of the recently leaked character designs look, well, cursed, on the other hand, it's being directed by Napoleon Dynamite's Jared Hess, which will hopefully ensure that it strikes a sufficiently off-kilter tone. So basically, who knows really? This could be cursed, or a love letter to one of the most popular video games of all time. Number 4. Joker Folie à Deux. As critically and commercially successful as 2019's Joker was, it didn't really feel like a film that begged for a sequel. But it wasn't too long before a follow-up was nevertheless confirmed, much to my chagrin, because the original's pitiable attempts at imitating Scorsese and Schrader were gag-inducing. And as for the sequel, from its portentous title through to the fact that it's a musical, Joker Folie à Deux is certainly a bold follow-up that seems like the furthest thing from a safe programmatic successor. So it gets credit for that, I guess. Whether it'll actually be any good though remains to be seen. A musical romantic thriller revolving around Joker and Harley Quinn is far from what most expected for Joker 2, and the end result could either be a film that provides something refreshingly original, or one that continues the first film's overindulgent prestige imitation and become the most obnoxious film of the year. I won't be seated, but hey, maybe there'll be something in there to prove me wrong. Number 3. Apartment 7A. Apartment 7A is a prequel to Rosemary's Baby, and while just about no one was asking for that, the pedigree involved with the project certainly makes it more difficult to dismiss out of hand. Plus, The First Omen, another horror prequel nobody was asking for, ended up being one of the most pleasant surprises of 2024, so maybe we're on a roll for this sort of thing this year. Apartment 7A is being directed by Natalie Erica James, who made some serious waves with her fantastic 2020 horror film Relic. And the cast is led by the brilliant Julia Garner and Diane Wiest. What's not to like? Well, there are some caveats worth considering. First and foremost, Apartment 7A finished shooting well over 2 years ago, insert Michael Scott grimacing gif here, and underwent extensive reshoots in the spring of 2023. Then there's the fact that Paramount is foregoing a theatrical release in favor of releasing it on their Paramount Plus platform. Bet you forgot about that one, didn't you? Given the mostly low quality of Paramount's direct-to-streaming horror releases, it perhaps suggests this film simply didn't come together as intended during its production. Or if you want to be a little more optimistic, James might have simply cooked up something so wild that it has no mainstream appeal whatsoever, and so it would have just been sent into cinemas to die regardless. Either way, fingers crossed. Number 2. Beetle Juice, Beetle Juice. It's not unfair to say that Tim Burton's output over the last 15 years has been, well, incredibly hit or miss. From the entertaining Frankenweenie, Big Eyes, and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, to the more uneven Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, and Dumbo. And considering that Burton has been trying to get a Beetlejuice sequel off the ground for over 3 decades, is it simply a case of it coming way too late? Between Burton's mediocre late career output and the many botched attempts to get this sequel made, perhaps it just wasn't meant to be. I mean, how many truly good belated comedy sequels can you actually name? Like, seriously, I'm struggling here. Has anyone actually ever done that before? All of that said, the trailers for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice do paint a fairly encouraging picture, showing off practical sets and effects instead of the soulless digital backdrops that define Burton's recent work under Disney. The cast also seem totally game, and for what little it's worth, Michael Keaton said the cut he saw of the movie was great. Sure, he delivers that the juice is loose line, like he's experiencing the entirety of The Flash before his eyes again in rapid time, but hey, it's Michael Keaton. We love him. Whatever the outcome, it seems unlikely that Beetlejuice will be middle of the road. It'll either be a firing on all cylinders return to form for Burton, or an embarrassing sequel that came a couple decades too late and is once again conforming to the stupid Force Awakens-induced nostalgia tingling that, again, really cannot be overemphasized, is exhausting to sit through. And number 1, Avengers Doomsday. At this year's San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel Studios made the internet-breaking announcement that the 5th Avengers film was now called Avengers Doomsday and would revolve around legendary supervillain Dr. Doom, as played by none other than Robert Downey Jr. Oh no. Naturally, this invited a ton of speculation about whether the MCU's Dr. Doom would be an evil Tony Stark variant. Yet, for as excited as many comic book movie fans were, there were just as many who saw the movie as a sign of Marvel Studios' desperation to get out of their creative rut. I'm in the latter category. I hate this. Look, bringing Downey back in a new role feels like a moonshot attempt to restore fading mainstream interest in the MCU. But as ever, it'll all come down to execution. In short, the thing's either gonna make $2 billion at the box office, or it's gonna destroy blockbuster filmmaking as we know it. With Infinity War and Endgame co-writer Stephen McFeely penning the script, there's good reason for the MCU faithful to be hopeful about Doomsday. But at the same time, for folks like myself who are hoping for a proper Doctor Doom and are all too aware of the Russo's diminishing returns outside of Marvel since Endgame, this could also spell doomsday for the MCU's 16-year reign at the box office.